Greetings, friends. I hope you're doing well wherever you are. This is Professor T once again, Socratic Discourse, and I'm here to do my second part of the Muhammad series. In the first part, you remember I talked about Muhammad's calling. So in this part, we'll be talking about the sources where you can go to learn about Muhammad's life, Muslim sources, or the primary sources to be precise. To Muslims, Muhammad is a very important figure. You can talk about the Quran and attack the Quran, and Muslims, in most of the cases, will not get agitated. At the moment you talk about Muhammad, who according to them is a perfect example, which, according to my own assessment, he falls short in many places, as we will examine, as we will see if that claim really stands to be true. But as we noted that he doubted his call, he even wondered if he was demon possessed. It is said that, according to Muslim sources, Muhammad was born in 570 AD, began his career in 610 AD, was married to Hadija. When Muhammad got married to Hadija, he was 25 years, and Hadija was 40. And it is said, according to the Muslim sources, that Hadija proposed marriage to Muhammad because Muhammad was honest, born from the tribe of the Quraysh. We know that Muhammad's mother was called Ami. Remember, according to Muslim sources, that Muhammad even almost committed suicide. And it took Angel Jibril to save him. He wanted to throw himself off a cliff and commit suicide with the supposed revelations that he was actually receiving. So interestingly, it was Waraka. Waraka was the cousin to the wife of Muhammad, Hadija then, who was, I think, an Ebionite Christian. If not an Ebionite Christian, was an Nestorian Christian. And these a group of who called themselves Christians, but they denied the deity of Jesus Christ. In other words, they denied his divinity. So it is Waraka. When Muhammad thought he was demon possessed, Khadija took Muhammad to Waraka, his cousin. So it is Waraka who actually told Muhammad that it is angel Jibril who was visiting Muhammad, just in the same way the Lord spoke to Moses previously. But there is a problem. The question that you can actually ask is, how did Waraka know that it was Angel Jibril who was visiting Muhammad when Muhammad was actually alone in the cave? He was not there. Waraka was not there. So where on earth, or how on earth, did Waraka know that it is actually Angel Jibril who was visiting Muhammad? So that in itself is a problem. Waraka was not present when Muhammad supposedly began receiving these revelations, but apparently he knew that these must be Angel Jibril visiting Muhammad, and so he told Muhammad that he is a prophet. So in a sense, it is Waraq who set off Muhammad on his prophetic career, which in itself is very, very interesting. So what are the sources of Muslim sources for Muhammad, the primary sources for Muhammad? Now, it is important to point out at the beginning that there is no single Muslim source today that can be traced back to the time of Muhammad or to his generation. If that was not problematic, we have not even one eyewitness source that can be traced back to the generation of Muhammad. No eyewitness testimonies. Having said that, what are the sources that we can go for? We can check for Muhammad's life. Number one are the Hadith. So the Hadith, to Muslims, these are the sayings or statements that describe what Muhammad said or did, right? And so the Hadiths themselves are kind of problematic because they reflect more of people's intentions to legitimize their rule. For example, I will talk, for example, the Umayyad caliphs, not the Abbasid caliphs. So the Abbasid caliphs, the Hadiths they collected about Muhammad, in a sense, reflected their biases and how they wanted to legitimize their authority over the Umayyads. So the Hadiths themselves reflected people's intentions and Muslim desires. Now, so many scholars today actually doubt the Hadiths, and many of them reject the legitimacy of the Hadiths because to them, the Hadiths represent more of the desires of the Muslims than the accurate information or accurate historical information about about Muhammad. Now, even in Islam, we have two major sects of Islam. Of course, we have many other sects, but we have two major sects in Islam. We have the Sunnis and the Shia. So the Sunni and the Shias, they themselves even have different hadiths, and all of them will differ according to how they will want to see Muhammad. An example of a Sunni hadith will be the Sahih al-Bukhari. I'm just going to read hadith here, hadith number 8 from book 62. So this is Sahih al-Bukhari. The hadith says, narrated Ibn Abbas, the Prophet said, if I were to take a Khalil, I would have taken Abu Bakr, but he is my brother and my companion. Of course, now that is a Sunni. That is from a Sunni tradition. But from a Shia tradition, I have one here that I want to share with you. One hadith here from the Shia tradition, so that the Shia themselves will even say something completely different. Now you know that the Shia follow Ali. They think the Shiites believe that Ali was the rightful heir of the Prophet Muhammad, but the Sunni believe it was actually Abu Bakr. So one of the Sunni hadiths here that we have read, Sahih al-Bukhari, has Muhammad saying that if he wanted to take a Khalil is a loyal companion, he will have taken Abu Bakr. But another hadith here says something differently, right? That is a Shiite hadith. It says, we are told that anyone who has me as his Mawla, or his close or loyal friend, has Ali as his Mawla. May Allah love those who love him and be the enemy of those who hate him. So this is from the Shiite hadith, the Shiite tradition. This is from the book Mosa, Extremist Shiites, page 96. But you can also actually check this from Musnad Ahmad 577. You can actually check this hadith. So one hadith says, has Muhammad say Abu Bakr to be the close companion, but the Shiite on the other side say no. If anyone has Ali has his Mawla, then I will also have, he will be my Mawla as well. Even the Shia and the Sunni Muslim are actually divided on that. But anyway, what is important to note that is that the hadith, according to Muslims, this is the saying or the deeds and actions of the Prophet Muhammad. They were actually recorded down according to them, right? So one, we have the hadith. The second one will be the Maghazi. So the Maghazi literature will be a collection of consecutive hadiths recording situations or statements that allegedly occurred in various battles and incursions led by Muhammad against his enemies, right? So those will be the Maghazi, sort of arranged in hadiths that are arranged in chronological way to record situations and statements that were supposedly said by Muhammad when in his incursions against his enemies. Now, the Maghazi, the sources of the Maghazi will be the hadiths, right? Now, the Maghazi is what morphed into the Sirah of Muhammad, or the biography of Muhammad. Now, the earliest Sirah was written under Caliph Mansur, who died in 775. Now, note that is a very long period. Muhammad died in 632, and then we have Caliph Mansur overseeing the writing of the biography of Muhammad. But we know that Mansur wanted Muhammad's biography in order to legitimize his claim to power. So that one at least we know. Now, the Maghazi, so we have the Hadiths, the Maghazi, which are mainly compiled from the Hadiths. Now we have other ones which are called the Futu and the Tarikh, right? So these two, the Futu and the Tarikh, the Futu examines Muhammad's military activities and his successors' conquests. For example, like Abu Bakr and the later caliphs who came, right? And his successors. So Muhammad's military activities and the military activities of his successors will be written in the Futu. The Tarikh, on the other hand, aims to provide Islam's history as part of major world events. Now, it is important to note that the Futu and the Tarikh, they emerge in the 3rd and 4th century AH, that is after the Hijrah. You remember Muhammad died in 632. So these two, the Futu and the Tarikh, emerge 3rd and 4th centuries after 632 now. Those are long time, very, very long time after the time that Muhammad lived and died. Now, let us get back to the Hadiths for a short moment. Now, according to Muslims, they have what they will call the Sahih. So those will be the Hadiths which will be considered to be authentic or authentic narrations, right? Which we will talk more about this as we continue. So we have this what we'll call the Sahih, and then the other ones that will be doubted will be like they will call them the Daif Hadiths, so to say. Sahih Bukhari, written 870 AD. That's long, very long after Muhammad died, and we will examine these more in the later videos. And then we have the Sahih Muslim, written 875. So we have 870, 875, right? Which is itself is a problem. Now, the Sirah that we have today, now that is about the Hadith. Now, the Sirah that we have today, the Sirah of the Prophet Muhammad, was supposedly first written by Ibn Ishaq in 767. Guys, that is 120 years after Muhammad. And as we will see, that Ibn Ishaq himself didn't even live in the area around in the Hijaz where Muhammad was actually born and lived, around Mecca and Medina, right? He's written miles and miles away, but 120 years later. So supposedly, apparently, according to Muslims, the one that was written by the Sirah that was written by Ibn Ishaq was lost, but it was found by his student or disciple, according to Muslims, Ibn Hisham, who edited its contents. Ibn Hisham took out what he wanted. Took out what he disliked and kept what he wanted. Now, that biography by Ibn Hisham, really, because we don't have anything from Ibn Ishaq, that biography by Ibn Hisham was translated by a British scholar known as Alfred Glom, and was printed by, I think, 1955 by Oxford Press. Now, those are the sources about Muhammad. As you can note, they're coming very, 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 very late. And in fact, in in this Sirah that we have, the 1955 one by translated by Guillaume, Ibn Hisham in that biography stated this, and I'm going to read it. I'm going to read it out for you. Ibn Hisham in that biography that we have of Muhammad says this, that there are things that he omitted from their biography that he received from Ishaq. Now notice it is Ishaq and then Hisham. There are things that he omitted from the biography, things which he names them. See, he says, things which it is disgraceful to discuss, matters which will distress certain people. You can get that from Ibn Hisham and Ibn Ishaq, page 691. He omitted the things that were supposedly disgraceful and will actually disturb certain people, right? So those are the sources we can go to the primary sources we can go to learn about Muhammad. Now you can begin noticing problems with those sources. One, none of them is an eyewitness account, and all of them are written actually way, way later. We have the biography appearing like 200, almost 200 years later after Muhammad. You have the Hadiths, 870, 875. Guys, that is long. That is very, very long from the life of Muhammad. No wonder many scholars today will actually doubt the authenticity of those hadiths, and they really have grounds to actually do so. But that is very different. Try to compare that with the life of Jesus Christ. Christians, we don't have that problem. Much of what we know about Jesus Christ, all of them were written by eyewitnesses in the presence of other eyewitnesses. And all the Gospels, as we know them, were actually written by the first century, and all the books of Paul virtually by the first century. But we'll talk more about this. So the information that we can have about Muhammad from the Hadiths, the saying and the statements from the Maghazi, and the records of his military expeditions against Muhammad, the Futu and the Tarikh and the Sirah of Muhammad, all of them actually written way, way later after Muhammad's death, a century and even to between 100 to 200 years later about Muhammad with no eyewitnesses. That is something that should actually concern us. And we don't have that problem as Christians. The sources about Jesus Christ are very early, both in the scriptures and even extra biblical, as we will see. Now, as I wrap up this video, first, Muhammad doubted his calling. You have Warak giving him assurance of his prophecy when he was actually absent. He was not there when Muhammad was receiving these revelations from an angel, Jibril, which we doubt that. You have the sources about Muhammad, which are written at least 120 years, 200 years later, not by eyewitnesses, not even by people who lived around the Hijaz, by people who took out what they disliked and kept what they liked, as we will see in the in the next videos to come. So I hope you begin noticing these things and you begin taking notes. So for the Muslim there, I will love you to begin considering these things open-mindedly and don't be close-minded. And even for the Christians out there, I will challenge you to go to these primary sources. You can actually go online and find most of these sources, or you can even purchase some of this. So have a good time. See you in the next video. This is Socratic Discourse, where we follow the argument wherever it leads. Our goal is to find the truth and align our lives according to the truth. And the reason as to why we're examining the life of Muhammad is one, to see if whether Muhammad was really a prophet of the Lord or not. So in the next videos, we will, in the next video, we're going to talk about the reliability of these sources. What do scholars say about these sources? So have a good time. God bless you. Remember,